Mishnahs. We're doing Mishnah 2. So Mishnah 2, Mishnah Beis in Pirkei Avos starts off by saying, Shimon HaTzadik, there was one of the sages by the name of Shimon HaTzadik, Hoya Meshirei Knesset Agdela. He was one of the last surviving members of the Great Assembly. So this is something that maybe was covered in Rabbi Barris's class or Rabbi Dubov's class, that there were a group of rabbis, altogether 120 rabbis. They were all not just ordinary rabbis, they were sages, prophets, and they lived in the time which was towards the end of the Babylonian exile and the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash. So just to get a perspective of what time and when we're talking about, one of the sages of this group was Mordechai from the story of Purim.
Yes.
And Ezra, who led the Jews back into Israel, was another one of the sages. These 120 sages, which like I said, were sages and prophets, they were the ones, in fact, who composed the siddur that we use, the davening. They're the ones who wrote all the brachas that we make on food, on mitzvahs. So this was a very important body of rabbis and sages that basically put down certain fundamental things for future generations. This individual, Shimon HaTzadik, was the last of these 120 sages. That's what it means. He was the last surviving member of that group. And he was obviously a great tzaddik. That became part of his title, Shimon HaTzadik. He was a high priest. He used to say, Al shleisha dvarim ha'olam oimei, the world stands on three things, which means these three things, they support the whole existence of the world, the creation. What are the three things? Ala Torah, the world stands on Torah. Ala Aveda, on service. Agmilas chasadim, acts of kindness. So when it says service, the way it's explained by the commentaries on the Mishnah, it's referring to prayer. So it's Torah, prayer, and acts of kindness. And the simple way to understand this is that Torah is related to the brain, prayer is related to the heart, acts of kindness are related to action, which basically means in the world at large, and in each person's individual personal world, there are these three things: the intellect, the emotion, and the actions. So in order for a person to have a world that is stable, that's solid, that's filled with blessing, a world that's filled with content and meaning and purpose and brings happiness and makes a person content, it's if these three things are going in the right direction. If my mind, which means my perspective, my values, my outlook is right, my feelings are directed in the right direction, things that I love, that I enjoy, that I appreciate. And the third thing is my actions are consistent with the way things are supposed to be, which is naturally consistent with Torah. So on a personal level and the world at large, if these three things are covered, the intellect, the emotion, and the action, then you have a solid, stable world. If one of these things are missing, then the world is not solid and not stable. And that's what it means. The world stands on these three things. And this is one of the most famous quotes from Pirkei Avos, that the world stands on these three things. In fact, one of the teachings of the Rebbe is that whenever people get together at a gathering, or maybe whether it's a meeting, whether it's a dinner, even if it's a fundraiser dinner, whatever it is, if people get together, in order for this to be blessed the way it should be, there should be three things. There should be words of Torah, there should be a prayer, and there should be tzedakah, acts of kindness. Because these three things is what makes the world stable on the global level, on the larger level, and on the personal level. So now when it says acts of kindness, the question is, how do we define acts of kindness? Again, the Hebrew word for acts of kindness is gemilas chasadim. But there's a lot of things that fall under that category. It's a very general word. What are the things that fall under the category? So we're going to go through the list, and there's certain things we'll talk more about and we'll elaborate on it more. So the first thing is, then look at page 4 now. Let's go to the booklet, page 4. Top of the page, it says Gemilas Chasadim. So again, we're interpreting the word Gemilas Chasadim means acts of kindness. There's something in davening which we say, which actually includes almost everything that's mentioned here. Not everything, but almost everything. But we'll go through them, each one separately. I'm going to start with number 3 on the list, visiting the sick. There's a section in the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, that talks about visiting the sick. If somebody is chas v'shalom not well, it's a mitzvah to visit them and to, by visiting them, trying to make them feel better.
But
yeah,
aren't there ways or rules of how to visit that person?
That was the next word that's going to be coming out of my mouth. And in the Shulchan Aruch, it also talks about how, what, when, where, which means that, first of all, visiting these words, Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick, has also a broader meaning. It means anything you can do for a person that's not well. Sometimes it means helping them contact a doctor. Sometimes it means helping them go to the doctor and come back, giving them a ride. Sometimes it means helping them financially that they can afford the doctor. Sometimes it means helping them find a doctor that's good. It could be anything related to helping another person who is not well to be able to be healed. So anything that's done. But visiting the sick literally means coming to them and visiting them. But we also know that visiting someone could sometimes be in the wrong time and they're really not comfortable that you're coming at this time. So this is one of the rules that before you come, you have to make sure that it's an okay time to come. When you do come, you shouldn't be there a long time because they're not well, so they need their time for themselves. Sometimes they need to do something and they're not comfortable because other people are in the room, so you don't stay there for hours. And also the things that you say should be things to give them strength, to encourage them, lift them around, not sometimes the opposite. And I remember reading an article of a woman that wrote an article about the time that she was sick. And she's writing the article that people should learn from it. What did she write? She had a disease. The name of it, I don't remember, it's something very not common. She was in the hospital. A friend came to visit her. And the friend said, so what exactly do you have? What is it? And she gives her this long name that sounds so strange. And the friend goes, I have a cousin. She died a few weeks ago from this disease.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, how much common sense do you need not to say that? Okay, that's pretty obvious. But again, there are people that can do that. They're so busy letting you know how knowledgeable they are that they forget what they're here for and so on. So again, the main point is you're here to give it. By the way, it says in Gemara that when you visit someone that's sick, these are the words in Gemara, it takes away a 60th of their illness. So people say, okay, if that's the case, let's send 60 people and they'll get out of bed immediately. No, because then when the next person comes, it's a 60th of what's there again. Of course, there must be a deeper reason why we say the 60th, but the general idea is that actually people that have people visiting them, they recover quicker and sooner. And I remember reading an article, it had nothing to do with Yiddishkeit, just an article, research article, and that's what they wrote. They took statistics, I'll get to you in a second, in a hospital, and they saw that those patients that had visitors, they healed sooner than others that had no visitors. Yeah.
Well, when we sleep, isn't it that we're 60% of death?
Also the same term, 60, right. There's a number of things that use the number 60. Must be a reason why it applies to these things. So again, that's the point. The whole point is, I think that's a way to just use judgment myself. Before I say something, when I plan to show them something, tell them something, I say to myself, is it going to uplift their spirits, or chas v'shalom the opposite? And that's the determining factor. That's all that counts. If I'm going to tell them good news, tell them something negative that'll only bring them down more. It's very simple. It's very simple. And if you have that in mind and you're aware of that and mindful of that, you'll say the right things. Yeah.
And are we supposed to sit towards the foot of the person? We're not supposed to sit by their.
We're not so specific about that. I mean, the place to sit would be where they're comfortable. They don't have to twist their heads in the body to look at me. And that's where it counts. In every community, which is a Torah community, is going to be an organization or a committee that's called the Bikur Cholim organization. And that's their function. Their function is that if someone has an issue, if someone's not well, or you have a relative that's well, people will go to them and they will help them in one of these ways, either by giving them money so they can afford the doctor, or giving them money so they can have transportation to and from the doctor, or sending someone and being over. Sometimes someone's sick. I mean, even in our situation, where you're in a school, you're in a dormitory, it is possible that someone's in the dormitory, they're not feeling well, and it doesn't dawn on anybody to say, you must be hungry. Can I get you something? Because they don't feel well, they're not going to go out of bed, they don't go downstairs. How's the food going to come to them? Because today we still don't have technology that food flies up to the third floor, not yet. So someone has to just be aware, oh, someone's sick. I should ask them if they have, I remember when COVID was happening here in Crown Heights, someone established an organization. And what was their function? Their function was to call people. No one's going outside. What do you need? Groceries? We'll go to the store, we'll get it for you and hang it up on your doorknob. And you can't imagine what kind of favor that did to many people who were afraid to go outside and so on. So that's what Bikur Cholim is. But again, that's the whole point. It's not about me getting points, and it's about me helping the other person. They tell this joke, they saw somebody running, says, where are you running? Says, I'm running to visit so-and-so who's sick. I hope he's not out of bed yet because I didn't get to see him. So it's not about me getting brownie points. It's about me visiting. If he's getting better and he's out of bed, Baruch Hashem, even if I didn't get a chance to go see him. But these are the things to have in mind. Number one, when to go, not to be there long, to be there only in a time that's comfortable for them. And of course, to be very aware of what comes out of my mouth when I'm there talking to them. I think I should mention this story because it's a story that's brought in the Sichos. It's from the Baal Shem Tov. It just brings out the power of this mitzvah. Of course, there's a lot of details to the story, and there's a lot of other details that need to be explained in the story, but let me just tell you the story as it is and how it's relevant to this. But the Baal Shem Tov, before he was known as the Baal Shem Tov, was a hidden tzaddik. And he and other hidden tzaddikim would travel from city to city, village to village. And the main point was to visit certain people that were simple. And because they were simple Jews and not knowledgeable of Torah, they were sort of rejected by the main community. They felt very down. And they felt that they're not really part of the mainstream Jewish people. And they would go out there to tell them, no, that Hashem loves you like he loves everyone else, and you could serve Hashem in your way. They told them stories from the Talmud. They uplifted their spirits. They helped them understand and appreciate that they could serve Hashem just like anybody else. And they used to travel. No one knew that they were tzaddikim. They thought they were just simple people themselves. But really, these were great tzaddikim, like the Baal Shem Tov, and that's how they got their message around. Baal Shem Tov once came to a town, I think it said that it was a city actually called Brod. And he said he saw somebody walking through the street and he was shocked. He saw a bright, brilliant light shining on top of his head. It wasn't a physical light. Obviously, Baal Shem Tov saw something spiritual. And the man was carrying some sort of sack on his shoulders. And people and children were calling him, hi, Herschel Tzig, that's what they called him. Herschel is a Jewish name. Tzig means goat. Now, a lot of names in Yiddish are names of animals, and they have a Yiddish, like Yehuda Leib, Arya Leib. Arya means a lion, and Leib is a lion in Yiddish. But Herschel happens to mean a deer, D-E-R. And Tzig is a goat, so the two things don't go together. But they called him Herschel Tzig. It looked like some people even poking fun at him, and he would answer everybody with a smile, have a nice day. But the Baal Shem Tov was looking at him, and he figured this must be a hidden tzaddik. And how is it possible? I had no idea that there's one of our group in this city. So he asked his other friends, and they said, no, I've never heard of such a person. Then the Baal Shem Tov started to follow him and observe how he davens, what he does. And he saw, no, he's no great tzaddik. He's not a hidden tzaddik, but he saw he had this brilliant light shining. And Baal Shem Tov went as far as fasting and asking, and in heaven they should reveal to him, what is the secret of this person? What is this light all about? And then the next day the Baal Shem Tov went out, he saw him, and he said to him, he heard the reason why they call him Hirshel Tzir, because he raised goats. And he had goat's milk, which is supposed to be healthier than ordinary milk. And he went to him to ask him if he could have some of the goat's milk. He said, sure, come to my house. He came to his house. As soon as he opened the door, goats jumped on him, they licked him. This was his family. And he milked one of the goats, and he gave him a drink of milk. And then he said to him, you want to know my story? I'll tell you my story. He didn't even ask him anything. He just said, you want to know my story? We'll soon see how he knew why he's there. So he told him that his wife used to be very involved in this mitzvah, Bikur Cholim, which means she would go visit the sick. She would visit women who gave birth and they were weak and they needed a lot of help. And this is what she did. She did this for a mitzvah. It wasn't an organization. It wasn't a business. This was just her mitzvah. And unfortunately, 10 years ago, she passed away. And after she passed away, she came to him in a dream. And she said she always heard people giving speeches and people reprimanding the community and telling the people in the congregation how terrible things will be when they get up there, and there'll be punishment, and there'll be this, and there'll be that. And she said she found the opposite, that all the people that she helped, the sick people that she provided them with food and other kinds of way of helping them, she said that she was given a tremendous place in Gan Eden, and she described him all the reward that she got. She never saw or heard any of the other stuff. And she said to him that as a reward for what I did, they allowed me, which is not the normal thing, to come to you in a dream and tell you, being that you're not a learned person, you don't have the merit of studying Torah, I should tell you, continue the work that I did, and that'll be a great merit for you. And since then, he said he bought himself goats, and he has the goat milk, and brings it to people that are sick or people that are weak, and this is healthy for them to drink. And that's what I've been doing all these 10 years. And the Baal Shem Tov understood that apparently this was so amazing and so precious to Hashem, and he did it with such love and sincerity that he merited to have this brilliant spiritual light that only the Baal Shem Tov saw. And he said to him that last night my wife came to the dream again, and she told me that tomorrow you're going to meet somebody in the street that's going to ask you for milk. Don't only give him milk, but tell him your story. And through him, you will be helped. After Baal Shem Tov heard the story, he said, you deserve that someone should teach you Torah. And Baal Shem Tov stayed on, taught him Torah. And after he left, he arranged for another one of the hidden tzaddikim to teach him Torah. And eventually he became one of the greatest tzaddikim of that generation. But he was a hidden tzaddik, nobody knew. But it all started out from the merit of Bikur Cholim. That's this mitzvah. So I'm not telling you to go buy goats or to produce goat's milk, but we just see from this how precious it is to Hashem, any act of kindness, and specifically this Bikur Cholim. Let's go to the next one. The next one is Achnasas Orchim. Achnasas Orchim means it's another form of act of kindness, and that is to welcome guests in your home. You can turn to page 5, the next page. I just put a few things down when it comes to this aspect of welcoming guests in your home. These are 3 statements that are found in the Talmud by our sages. I'm going to go to the number 2 first. let's start with number one. One of the places we learn this from is Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu had a tent. And it says that his tent had an opening on all four sides, on the north, on the east, on the south, and the west. And the reason was that it should be open. Any person that's traveling, whether they're coming from this direction, that direction, or the other direction, they should know the door is open, they can come in. And I guess you can understand this physically or figuratively. People are coming from different directions, different walks of life, different kinds of people. Everyone is welcome. And he gave them food, and he helped these people that were traveling. And on that basis, this is one of the reasons why a chuppah looks the way it looks. When a chassan and kala get married, they stand under a chuppah. What is a chuppah? There's a covering on top and 4 sticks. It's supposed to represent the house that they're going to build. It's a pretty flimsy house, 4 sticks and a roof, but it's supposed to represent the home of Avraham Avinu, that it's open on all 4 sides, and it's going to be a home that will be welcoming guests, and guests will be welcome there. And that's a very big mitzvah. In fact, we just had Sukkos. And in Sukkos, one of the things you heard about in class, and you probably heard about it when you went to people's homes, is that every night our forefathers and other tzaddikim come to visit the sukkah. But it says that if they walk into the sukkah and they see there's no guest, they walk out. How could there be no guest by the table? However, just not to get too much in shock, it does say that if someone doesn't have any guests by the table, but before Yom Tov came, they actually gave money to families that they should have food for Yom Tov, it's the same thing, and they're okay. But we see from this the importance of having guests. And again, if we can bring in the Baal Shem Tov, it's known that the Baal Shem Tov was born to parents that were elderly people, and they had no children their entire life. And they were also hidden tzaddikim, his father and his mother. His father's name was Rabbi Eliezer, his mother's name was Sarah. And then towards the end of their life, they brought this child into the world. But before he came into the world, his father was tested. Apparently, there was a decree that he can't have children. And something very strong was needed to sort of break through that blockage. And he was tested, and the test was Achnasas Orchim. Some of you might know the story. They had a guest that came to his house, a very rude guest, came Friday night. He didn't want to go to shul. He'd rather stay home. Went straight to the food, ate a lot of food. After eating a lot of food, his stomach wasn't working well. Other things happened, which I won't go into the graphics. Same thing happened Shabbos day. He was extremely rude. Any other person would have grabbed him by the collar and throw him out of the house. But he said, this is my guest, and I'm going to respect him no matter what. When Shabbos was over, after he made Havdalah, the person turned around and something changed. And he said to him, I'm not an ordinary person. I'm Eliyahu Navi. I was sent from heaven to test you, and you passed the test with flying colors. And next year, this time, you will have a son who will light up the world. And that was the Baal Shem Tov. So there are a lot of things that are said about inviting guests in your home, but I think I put down number 2, which is I think maybe the strongest thing that's found in all the sayings of our sages. And that is, a welcoming guest is even greater than receiving the Shekhinah, the divine presence. Anyone remember perhaps where we learned this from? In 2 weeks, you wouldn't have a hard time knowing because it's in the parsha 2 weeks from now.
Oh, Aaron?
Right. What happened with Aaron?
Well, he was in pain, and he really wanted it, and he really wanted to get for that. And so he did. Hashem sent him 3 malachim. One would destroy Edom, one would to tell him that Sarah would have a child,
Right.
another would to comfort Abraham.
Right. So let me fill in the story. And what happened was that Hashem gave him the mitzvah of circumcision for the first time. And because of that, he was in pain. Hashem knew that he loves to have guests. So he made it to be a very hot day, so hot that nobody would go outside. But he was so pained by not having guests that Hashem sent 3 angels that they should look like humans and he would have his guests. So when he saw the angels, he said to Hashem, could you wait a moment? I'm going out there to get the guests. A beautiful story, but is that what you do when Hashem, imagine a king comes to visit you and you say, okay, could you relax for a few minutes? I'm going out to get guests. That's disrespectful. The king came to visit you. You can't do anything else. Just you have to pay attention to the one who came to visit you. This is Avraham Avinu, and Hashem himself came to the tent to visit him, and he leaves Hashem where he is, and he goes to get the guest. Apparently, he knew and understood that Hashem wants him to go get the guest. So from this, we learn that receiving guests is even greater than receiving the divine presence, because that's what he did.
Wow.
Just to conclude, another little story. They tell a story that there was a chassid that once traveled to his Rebbe. It was the first time that he came. Maybe it was the first time his Rebbe became a Rebbe. He hadn't seen him yet. He came to the town in the middle of the night, and he didn't know what it, usually if you come in the middle of the night, you go to the shul and you sleep on a bench. But he saw one house had the light on, so he knocked on the door, and the person in the house opened the door, was very happy to come in. And he told him that he's traveling, he came here to see the Rebbe. He said, sure, he would take some soup, he gave him soup, he gave him some food, he gave him a bed to sleep. And he was very fine, comfortable. And in the morning he went to shul. When he goes to shul, he's waiting, finally the Rebbe comes and he sees who the Rebbe is and he nearly fainted. This was the person who came last night, he came to last night, and this person made him food, gave him his bed, and he felt so embarrassed, even too embarrassed to ask for forgiveness, but he had no choice. And he started to cry and said, please forgive me. I had no idea it was you. It didn't even dawn on me that it might be the Rebbe. And I made you cook for me and prepare food for me. And the Rebbe said, of course, I'll forgive you, but on one condition. If you agree for this one condition, unconditionally agree, I'll forgive you. He had no idea what the condition would be, but he said, whatever the Rebbe will tell me to do, I need that forgiveness. Please, I'm ready to do everything and anything. So I told him, whenever you come here, you'll come to my house. Because I don't get a chance to do Achnas Azarcha. Nobody wants to come to me. So now you have to come to my house. There are actually a few times in history that have happened that the Rebbe brought someone to his house, certain individuals. Okay, number 3 on this page is also related to this mitzvah. And again, this is considered the mitzvah of Avraham Avinu, by the way. It's his mitzvah, welcoming guests. So in the Chumash it says that he built Eisho near his tent, Eisho. What is Eisho? I think you know down the block on Kingston Avenue, there's a hotel called Eisho. Why? Because one opinion says that Eisho means like a hotel. He built a hotel. So people use that name for a hotel. But the other explanation is that it's actually an acronym. Aleph stands for achila, eating. Shin stands for shtia, drinking. And lamed stands for lina, which means sleeping, a place for people to eat, to sleep, and to drink. And then there's another opinion that the lamed also stands for levia, to escort. After a person stays in your home, you escort them outside before they leave. So this is what it means in the Chumash. It's going to be Parshas Vayera, which is 2 weeks from this Parsha. This week is Noach, then goes Lech Lecha, then goes Vayera, where it says that Avraham Avinu planted an Eishel, and both are true. He planted a place where people can eat and drink and sleep and have a place to be comfortable while they're traveling. So again, in every Torah community is going to be an organization, like in this community and same as other communities, which their responsibility is Achnos Asarachim. Someone calls up and says, I'd like to spend the Shabbos here. Is there any family that maybe that I don't know anybody where I can say, we can set up, and that's what they would be doing. I don't think it necessarily applies to everybody, but there's a story with the Alter Rebbe that when he got married, he was married for 13 years, and he only had daughters. He had no sons. And he has the Mizrach Magid for a bracha for his son. And when you ask for a bracha, usually it comes along with doing something spiritually that would be like a conduit for that bracha to flow to me. So his Rebbe, the Magid Mizrach, told him, there's the pasuk in Tehillim. It says, "B'meh yizaken nar es orchoi," which means it's changing the literal meaning of the words. It's like a deeper meaning of the words. B'meh yizaken nar, which means how could a person merit to have a son? Because he had daughters, he wanted a son. Es orchoi, by having guests, by doing the mitzvah of pasuk, you will merit to have a son. Next child. Okay, I think we'll stop here, and then enough time to move on to the next thing. But we'll go through all the other things, what they are in terms of being a act of kindness. Yeah.
Oh my God.